More Than Real Estate podcast is all about bringing life and energy to real estate without always talking about real estate. Look forward to interviews with influential members and industry partners. These stories will focus on their personal growth and incorporate lighthearted, inspiring, and sometimes funny segments, highlighting the fact that there's more to realtor life than being a realtor. I'm your host, Chantal Goddard. Thank you so much for everybody that is listening. I am thrilled to be joined by Aaron Lillie, who is one of our local realtors and a member of the Barrie District Association of Realtors. Aaron's got a few other hats that he wears as well. So he runs, and on top of being a local realtor that deals mostly with the waterfront condo market and assisting people with accessible housing needs, he is the owner of Lillie Properties, Inc. and also runs Frog Leg Mobility, Inc. So we'll get into all of that. But first, welcome, Aaron. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be here.
Sweet. Yeah, I look forward to getting to know you a little bit more and getting some more info on what it is that you're doing and sort of diving into why it is that you do what you do. So real estate, what drew you into the real estate business? Did you always know that it was something that you wanted to do, or?
Not exactly. So it's been sort of something that's evolved over time. So originally I was in school, I was at University of Western Ontario doing a management and finance degree. So I think kind of like a lot of young people, I didn't really know necessarily what I wanted to do, when I was graduating high school. And I was kind of leaning between, architecture, because I had an interest in homes and buildings and that kind of thing. And then, sort of that in business, right? So I've always had sort of like this passion for sports and that sort of thing, and considered being a sports agent, that type of thing as well. So I went to school, sort of thinking about it broadly, right? And I knew that I liked that. I sort of chose that business sort of avenue, right? So went to Western for management and finance. And then, obviously things changed for me a little bit, when I broke my neck. So, eventually after my accident, I ended up finding out that it was rather difficult to find housing for, somebody in a wheelchair. My whole family went through it, whether it was from, when I first broke my neck and, my parents needing to renovate their home for me. Eventually me moving out.
Yeah. So. Were you living at home for a while with it, or whenever everything happened, or?
Yeah, so it's quite a long process, obviously. I'm not sure really where you want me to start on it, but I broke my neck in 2007. So from there, jump around for a variety of hospitals. So I was originally from Bracebridge, like up in the Muskoka area. And, I was originally at the hospital there. Then I was flown to Toronto Western. And then from there, did like quite a lengthy surgery, and then eventually moved into, in between I was in St. Mike's and then Toronto Western, and then eventually was transferred to a rehab facility. So I was in the hospital for 2 months, and then in rehab for another 5 months. Originally when I came home,
it's a very long time. That's a long process to go through. Yeah, I'm actually, I'm kind of surprised that it wasn't longer than that.
Yeah, because even then you actually end up feeling like you don't have enough time, and usually people are fighting for more time in rehab. So the government kind of has like standards on how they approach it, and everybody wants to be there longer. So when I came home, my parents were kind of like in a scramble to renovate our home. They put an addition on it, and put an elevator in, and a rolling shower, and sinks that were accessible to me, like all that kind of stuff. And everything's new for them, new for me, new for everybody that that I know. It's not something that you typically deal with, right? So it kind of like opens up this whole world.
How was that adjustment period for everybody? Like, I'm sure it was hard emotionally and mentally, but what was it that you guys what did you do, or what did you have sort of pushing you forward and keeping you going?
Yeah, so it's one of those things that I would always tell everyone where, people say it must be hard for you and that kind of thing. And like, of course it was, but it's not just hard for me, it's hard for everybody around me as well, right? So it's hard for your family, it's hard for your friends. And, I was lucky enough that I came from a small town where, my brothers and I were very involved in the community and sports and, other things. And, We got a ton of community support, which obviously like super important. Your sort of support structure means everything.
Yeah.
So, the place where I'm at in my life now, whether it's emotionally or financially or whatever, I think is a lot of it as to, I owe great credit to my family and my friends, right? So, it's for sure
Yeah.
it's something that's difficult, and there's people out there every day that are struggling with it. And anyway, to kind of come back onto that housing point is, it's not something that I ever considered being an issue for people. It's not something you think about a lot, but once you're in it
Yeah.
and you realize, something that you need to do, whether it's a rental or a purchase or whatever, it's always difficult to find, accessible housing. So I was very surprised
Yeah.
through my process, um, how few people there were to help with that kind of thing. So, that's part of the reason why I transitioned into it, and
Yeah.
knowing that potentially I could help other people. So,
Yeah. I love that you've taken sort of what some people would have looked at as a huge challenge or a huge obstacle, and that you're taking your experience and that you're able to help people, and that you're able to use all that support that you received and sort of funnel it through with all your efforts that you're doing. So it's kudos to you for all that. That's amazing.
thanks.
So I guess going into the business that you run, so you've got the real estate side that you obviously I would say if anybody that I know that's looking for, that has any questions for accessibility and just trying to find housing that's suitable for them, what's some of your insight or your experience with that? Like, is Barrie and Simcoe County, is it adjusting to that market, or is it something that we need a lot of help in?
On the realtor front, I would say no. There's obviously been some good changes as of late within the new matrix system, and where we used to
Yeah.
see that on the Lakelands board and up in Muskoka, that they actually had a better system than we did in terms of being able to pick out little specifics in terms of the details of houses, whether it was wider doorways or lowered
Mm-hmm.
counters or roll-in showers and that kind of thing, and we didn't have it. And I was actually, to be honest, quite surprised that you don't see that being stronger here and then even stronger in Toronto, because typically you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing, people that are more wheelchair bound or that have disabilities, living in larger cities because things just typically are more accessible, right? But it's actually
Yeah.
the reverse where, our system was worse than Toronto's better than Toronto's, and then Lakelands is even better than ours, right? So it's good to see that change a little bit. And Barrie is a fairly accessible city. They do a very good job at attempting to change things, and the government in Ontario has, as of late, has changed things quite a bit. If you look back 10 or 15 years,
Yeah.
not that it's ever good to be paralyzed, but it's the best time to be paralyzed, better than it was
Yeah.
10 or 50 years ago, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Huh, that's interesting. I think we had chatted a little bit about your efforts that you had made with getting just even the signage changed and that. Can you tell me a bit more about it?
Yeah, so that one, it's called the Forward Movement. So, and management at our office was actually nice enough to let me put up a sign
That's
there.
awesome.
So it's a movement that started out of the U.S. and basically the idea is that the typical handicap placard that everybody knows and sees, and that's in, whether it's on the pavement and parking spots or signs, it's very like stagnant, and it stigmatizes the disability, right? So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people aren't really aware, but the origin of the word handicap actually comes from the UK, where uh, basically veterans after the war who were considered to not be able to work for themselves and sort of fend for themselves were required to hold their hands in cap, where they would be begging for money. So
Wow.
that's where the term handicap comes from.
Yeah.
And I think some people are offended by it or not, and I'm not one of those people that, I don't really care whether somebody calls me handicapped or disabled or whatever. Like if you talk to my brothers, they would jokingly, call me crippled or a parallelogram or whatever, right? But it's all
Yeah.
in good fun, right?
Yeah.
It's jokes, but that's not for everybody, and I think it's pretty crazy to think that in the age that we're in now, that is still something that's typically being used. So
Yeah.
the forward movement, basically, like they're trying to encourage a change in the way that people see people that are disabled. And, it's basically like the same symbol, but it shows forward movement where,
I love
the
it.
person isn't just stagnant sitting in a wheelchair, and they actually are moving forward. So that's something that we've supported, and that I think that a lot of other people should too. It'd be nice to see more of that around the city. So
yeah, for sure. And then, so with the leasing business that you run, is it catered mostly to anybody that has accessible issues or disabilities, or do you guys cater to absolutely everybody?
yeah, we try to cater to everybody. So our goal is to eventually have, I guess, a portfolio of more properties that are accessible. So you know what I mean? Like, for the same reason that I feel like I have a little bit of additional expertise in terms of finding accessible housing for people, whether it's a purchase or rental, I have a little bit more expertise in knowing, what things are going to be make it easier for somebody to rent one of our units as well, right? And that is something that's very difficult. So just because of the same thing that we're talking about with people being called handicapped or being forced to beg for money or being on government support, typically the disabled community is in that sort of lower income bracket, and they are going to be people that are renting more often, and typically renting units that need to be more affordable. So it's very, very difficult to find that period, and then you add in that disability portion, and it makes it even tougher. So
with the Second Suites program, is that something like, are there other grants that are out there? I know that there's the home renovation grant where you can add additional support systems or whatever is potentially needed for somebody. Have you seen many people taking advantage of the resources that the county has out there to try and make more accessible housing?
So not really. We've come across a few investors that have tried to do that, but typically we're seeing like end users using things like March of Dimes, where there's funding available for people in certain situations. That doesn't apply to everybody, but it depends, and it depends on the disability, right? So
yes, that's true.
And that's the thing about disabilities as well. And I think we had kind of talked about this before, but my disability is very visible. It's very evident. I'm in a wheelchair. You can't really miss that. Like, I'm not robbing a bank anytime soon, because I think everybody would know who I am. But not
I'll never forget whenever we opened the brokerage in Midhurst and you're like, where is the ramp? I'm like, it's right around the side. I promise we are accessible. Yeah, that was the one thing actually. Even just going through our process of opening the office, we had Springwater Township. We had to make sure that everything was accessible, and that there was enough turning radius and all of that. But it's all, even just going through that experience, and that was 3 years ago, just sort of seeing what's important that half the stuff I didn't even think of. So
yeah. And that's why it's funny, I guess, is that sometimes you see people that they'll be like, oh, we got an accessible washroom. Like they're really excited about it because they, it's larger bathroom or whatever. And then you look at the building and there's stairs to get in. So
good point.
A lot of times things get overlooked. And I think that's where like a little bit I have a better idea than most on what, it needs to be the way that I need it, just because I live it every day. But the thing to remember is that not all disabilities are visible.
That's very true.
That, just because you see somebody park in a handicap spot and then walk away doesn't mean that they don't have a disability. And I think that, it's great to see somebody, getting upset that, an able-bodied person parked in a handicap spot, because that's not something you want to see happen. But at the same time, you have to always remember that you can't necessarily see that disability. And the way that I always work in, my business is just to ask the questions, like just to see what it is that people need, the same way that someone might want or need something different in a home, client to client. It's the same thing with somebody's disability, right? So realistically, just asking is not going to be something that's offensive to somebody with a disability. And, it always always
Yeah.
counts to learn, right? So.
I think it's super important. Just ask. And I know that you nailed it right there, that people are usually afraid to offend somebody, but I guess it's better to not assume and ask and find out exactly what it is that they're wanting.
For sure.
So as, I guess, a triple business owner operator, how do you manage your time with everything and with what's going on with lockdown and homeschooling and all of that stuff? How are you managing your time?
With the homeschooling, it's tough. That's for sure. Yeah, it definitely changes things quite a bit. But the thing for me is always just lists. I have a lot of lists, workflows. Like I use a CRM called RealVolve, which is, it's amazing. And they're all about workflows. So workflows typically help me a lot. And without my lists, I wouldn't make it through the day. But I think that just having consistency and being like disciplined is what really does it for me. I've always kind of found that because of my disability, there's certain things that just, I have less time in my day already. Because there's certain things that I have to do that other people don't, that make my day take longer, and some of them take longer to do than, the average person. So getting up in the morning, isn't as easy as it is for somebody else. I don't just pop up out of bed, right? Kind of dependent on other people and people that work for me. So a bit of a game changer. And ever since my accident, I've always had to make sure that I'm regimented and had structure. Otherwise, I'd never be able to keep down a job or whatever, right? So having the three businesses and being my own boss definitely helps to be able to, create my own hours and that sort of thing. But it's not easy.
That's awesome. No, I hear you with that, but it's great that you've got your systems that are working for you. For your to-do list, are you like write everything down, even if you know that you're going to strike it off right away, or are you like accomplish 3 major things in a day, or how do you? I always find it.
I basically, like, since I was young, was like a very list and task oriented person. So, I inherited it from my mom, I think, and my brothers and I are both the same way. But I put a list for everything, and I get gratification out of getting those things off my list. And some days the list, even though you did, 50 things, the list gets bigger. But, I think without them, my brain would just be out to lunch. I wouldn't remember.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
So do you work with your brothers then as well, or are you guys all in different fields?
Yeah, so my brothers both live in Barrie as well. So it's kind of funny because we, obviously originally came from Muskoka and then all ended up here. And my parents are still up in Bracebridge, but my older brother's a chiropractor in town, high street chiropractor. And then my younger brother's actually a paramedic, but he's also a part-time realtor. So he's a registered assistant. And then he helps us kind of with our team and our business. So yeah.
That's really cool. And then do you guys do the leasing side all together as well, or is it just the real estate business that you do together?
Yeah, we do the leasing all together as well. And we've done, some construction projects and stuff like that before as well. So my brothers and I are really close, and, we do a lot of things together. So
that's awesome. That's nice to have.
Yeah.
So with Big Brothers, what is your, like, there's so many incredible things that you're doing, just even from the short conversation so far, that it's really nice to see how much you're giving back. And even if it's just your time and helping out with different things, what's your involvement with Big Brothers and Big Sisters?
So I'm trying to think of how many years it's been now, but say maybe about 6 or 7 years, I guess I've been with Big Brothers. Wow. I could be wrong on that, but it's just crazy how fast time flies. Like, you have kids, I'm sure you understand. So originally when we got paired up with a match, so my younger brother and I are Big Brothers together with a young boy who's now, graduating high school. And originally when we were paired with him, kind of, young round face, young kid. And now he's grown into a man and has his own personality and everything. And, it's been pretty rewarding and fun at the same time. So it's just kind of try to meet up with him once a week, and we just do whatever he wants to do, whether it's sometimes just sit around and talk, or, go go-karting or go, mini putting or go to a movie or whatever. We'll just do whatever he wants to do. And it's been hugely rewarding. And they always have a need for more people to be big brothers. And I think enough people don't realize how many kids there are waiting for matches out there. So, yeah.
He's fortunate to have you. That's awesome. I guess it sort of it lets you leave an imprint, and even just what you had said with learning stuff from your mom, I'm sure you're passing lots of valuable stuff on to him as well. So it's nice that he's got a role model for that. So I'm going to say for 2021, what are you most looking forward to?
A lot of things. I mean, I think like anybody, like I miss restaurants. I miss concerts. I miss being able to travel. Like I'm a huge traveler. So,
where's your go-to? I think we've talked about this before, I think.
Yeah.
A couple years ago. Yeah.
I don't like.
Where's sort of, okay, go-to?
I don't like going to the same place twice. So like
no,
my whole thing is like, I want to see as much of the world as I can. So, I've been all over the place, and I think the more that you travel, the bigger your list gets. So, obviously right now that's a huge no for most people, and especially for me, just because I'm at higher risk and like sort of like reduced lung function. So, I can't wait till the vaccine rolls out strong enough that, most of the population is immune, hopefully, and then, from there can get back to life as normal. Like I truthfully, I just miss summer and miss my boat. So that's kind of the thing that I'm most looking forward to. But even just restaurants and patios and that sort of thing, right? Like I think like anybody, you miss it. And it's not like I'm necessarily one for crowds, but I miss the crowds.
No, it's just some normalcy in any way possible would be nice.
For sure.
Yeah. What's okay, if you had to pick like your top 3 places in the world to visit, where would they be?
That's so hard. Like I've been so many places, and people always ask me that, where they ask like, where's my favorite place I've been? And I think every place in the world has its own beauty for its own reasons, right? Like, so whether you're in Ireland and it's like the rolling green grass, or you're in Italy and, the cliffs overlooking the ocean, or Barrie was one of my favorite places I've been. But it just, every place has its own beauty. And there's been very few places that I've been that I haven't liked. But I think that it's more often the people that you travel with, and then the way you share the experience, more so than, the actual place itself. So when I was younger, I got to go to Belgium, to Boom, Belgium, to go to Tomorrowland for a concert there. So it's an EDM concert that it's like 400,000 people.
That's crazy.
And we were there for 4 days for a buddy's bachelor party. But I got to crowd surf on top of the crowd, and it's like one of the most memorable experiences of my life. So I would say that's probably been one of my favorite places to travel, but I don't really want to pick one, to be honest.
That's okay. You don't have to. And then I know you're a huge supporter of local. Is that the clock that you have behind you? Is that, I know one of the giveaways that you had done recently, is that from the same company?
So that's, I think it's generational design or generational woodworks, or can't remember the name exactly, but they're local. Cool. Yeah, they're great.
What are some of your favorite local businesses? If you have to go, here, let's do it this way. Okay. Restaurant?
So I'd say Avoco Bar.
Favorite local restaurant?
Avoco Bar, probably. I love Urban Dish for like sit-in restaurants, but at the same time, Avoco Bar has been one that I just feel like I really want to support, because we saw them sort of start up from day one, and we're there when they first opened, and they didn't even seem like they were really ready to serve food yet, and now they've grown so much, and the owner has such a personality and that sort of thing too, that it's just great to see somebody doing that well. So I love going there whenever I can. So
That's awesome. Favorite local shop, whether it's woodworking or just stuff, like your favorite local business for that?
It's a tough one. I feel like I gravitate towards the local foods, to be honest, but like, like donuts and places like that, right? Like they're,
Ooh.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. And then for your bucket list, what would the top thing be on your bucket list? Or it sounds like you might have a few of them.
Yeah, I got lists everywhere, but the one probably that's the top for me right now is skydiving. So
that's cool.
I wanted to go years ago and just couldn't. And then, my brothers and a bunch of my friends went and just loved it. And we were actually supposed to go this summer. And then, because of COVID, we weren't sure whether we should do it. And then near the end of the year, we were going to and just didn't get the weather. So that's one that I'm really looking forward to. But
that's cool. I love, like, this might sound totally cliche, but I love that you don't really let anything stop you. You're like, yep, okay, we're going to go skydiving.
Thanks a lot.
That's awesome. I love it. That's good. And then just one last question. What does being more than a realtor mean to you?
I think to me, it just means like it's a people business, right? So, it's all about the people at the end of the day. We're providing a service and, like you would know, the relationships that you build with your clients are just so much more, right? It doesn't feel like work when you're doing it the right way, I think. And, everybody's different. So, I bring something to the table differently than you do and differently than, the rest of our colleagues do. So to me, that's sort of what it means. There's personality behind everybody. And I think part of our job is really cracking into that personality and seeing what it is that makes somebody tick and what they want in a home and a life and, that sort of thing as well, right?
That's awesome. I love it. I think you nailed that.
Nice.
Any parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
No, not really. I think you guys you're doing a great job over at BDAR and improving things. We've seen a huge change in the past couple of years, right? So, and I mean, obviously with the technology changes and that sort of stuff, it's great to see edging into the podcast world now. And
it's fun. We're getting there. We're being innovative.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing everything that you bring to the table. I think you're a huge value to our community, to whether it's the realtor community, any clients that you're working with, and just even Simcoe County in general and what you're bringing to just the awareness that you're bringing. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks a lot. It's nice talking to you.
Awesome. You too. Bye.
Thanks for listening. To hear our other episodes, be sure to subscribe, and we would love it if you could leave us a review.